Hello everyone. In today's video, we will factor this cubic expression. Now this is a cubic expression because the highest power on the x is 3. Now there are 4 terms in this cubic expression. There's negative x cubed, negative x squared, plus x and plus 1. So whenever there are 4 terms in a cubic expression, the first factoring method we should always try is the grouping method, because the grouping method is the easier of the two methods we use to factor a cubic expression. Now in the grouping method, we pair up the first two terms and we pair up the last two terms. And now we have to do common factoring for each pair. And then we can see if the grouping method will work for this cubic expression. So from the first pair, we can factor out 2x's, and since the first term is a negative term, we should factor out negative x squared, because we can factor out 2x's from both terms. So if we factor out 2x's, that means we are factoring out x squared, and now in the parentheses we can write what's left of these two terms. So if we factor out negative x squared, that means we have to divide these two terms by negative x squared. So if we do negative x cubed divided by negative x squared, we are left with a positive x. I can show you the step. So basically we have to do negative x cubed over negative x squared. So this is the step we use for common factoring, and then we do the same thing for the other term. So we divide it by negative x squared. Now we can analyze the second pair. Now in the second pair we cannot factor out an x, and then we cannot factor out any other number. So from this pair we can factor out a 1. And then in the parentheses, where the terms stay the same as x plus 1, because x divided by 1 is x and 1 divided by 1 is 1. So whenever we factor out a 1, the terms in the parentheses stay the same. Now we can simplify this expression. So we have negative x squared outside the parentheses, and now inside the parentheses, the negative x cubed over negative x squared gives us a positive x. So the negatives cancel each other out. And now here also the x squares cancel each other out and the two negatives become a positive. So we get positive 1. And there is nothing we can do in the other part of the expression, so that stays the same. So we can see that in both of these terms we have this x plus 1 in the parentheses. So since this x plus 1 is common to both terms, that means the grouping method works for this cubic expression. If we had gotten different terms in these two parentheses, then the grouping won't work. So this is a very important concept you need to understand and memorize. So now since both of these terms have x plus 1, we can factor out x plus 1, and in another parentheses we can write what's left of these terms. So first we are left with negative x squared and then plus 1. So negative x squared comes from here and this 1 is from here. Now we have to check if we can factor this expression any further. Now we can rewrite this expression here in the second parentheses, and we can just rearrange the terms in this expression. So minus x squared plus 1 can also be written as 1 minus x squared. So I wrote 1 first and then I wrote the negative x squared, because if we write it in this form, it becomes easy to identify that this expression can be factored further using the difference of squares method. So I'll write the formula for difference of squares on the board. So difference of squares method formula is a squared minus b squared can be written as a plus b times a minus b. Now in this case, first parenthesis stays the same because we cannot factor it anymore. And the second one, 1 can also be written as 1 squared because 1 squared is equal to 1. We can factor this expression using difference of squares. So we get 1 plus x times 1 minus x. 1 plus x can also be written as x plus 1. So we get x plus 1 times x plus 1 times 1 minus x. So we keep 1 minus x in this form because we typically want to keep the first term in the parentheses as a positive term. Now in the next step, we can combine these x plus 1's into a single x plus 1 with a square. So x plus 1 squared times 1 minus x. So this should be the final answer for the factored form of this given expression. So I hope you will find this video useful. Please share it, like it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye.